If you're busy but your results aren't really moving you forward, misalignment is probably the real villain. I want to talk about one of the most expensive forms of organizational chaos. And the reason it's so dangerous is that it doesn't look like chaos. It looks like productivity. Everyone is busy, meetings are full, dashboards are active, projects are moving. But at the end of the quarter, the results don't match what leadership intended. That's misalignment. Misalignment is the fastest way to waste a year because you execute hard, spend political capital, exhaust your people, and you still don't get the outcomes you expect. Today I'm going to show you how misalignment happens inside of an organization, the signals that reveal it, and what you can do immediately to diagnose it before you waste another moment. Misalignment isn't just annoying, it can be expensive. When your organization is misaligned, you spend money on work that doesn't drive outcomes. You create change fatigue without making a change impact. You confuse urgency with priority and are constantly firefighting. And you burn out high performers who are doing everything but not seeing the progress. I've watched executive teams build beautiful strategic plans, really inspiring stuff. And then they get frustrated and cynical throughout the year because the results don't actually show up. It's not because the strategy was wrong. It's because somewhere between the plan and the execution that happens on the front lines, the signal got distorted. And nothing stops if a signal's distorted. It's just execution pointed in the wrong direction. Misalignment is how an organization becomes a machine that produces the wrong outcomes. Let's get this on the board. There's nothing more frustrating than working hard and not seeing that work move anything forward. Misalignment is when people are busy, but the organization is not moving towards the right outcomes. This is how alignment is supposed to work. Strategic intent sets the direction. Then during the business planning cycle, all the lower levels are aligned. Enterprise priorities translate strategy into focus. Division outcomes define what each part of the org is responsible for delivering. Workstream outputs define what work actually gets done. And frontline execution is where reality happens. Execution happens at that front line. If alignment breaks anywhere above it, the organization will still execute, but it won't produce the results that leadership intended. So this is the loop. Planning flows down, execution happens at the base, and results roll back up. Leadership assumes that if the plan was solid up here and people worked hard down here, the results will align. That assumption is where a lot of organizations lose a year or more. This alignment is signal integrity. It's the ability of the organization to transmit what matters from the top to the execution at the bottom without distortion. But what happens if there's misalignment? Somewhere in the translation layer, the signal gets distorted. Now the front line is executing, but they're executing based on a different interpretation of what matters because there's this distortion. Or they could just be executing based on what's easiest or what they did last year or what's loudest or safest or what's being politically rewarded. Misalignment is when the organization starts optimizing for activity instead of outcomes. When misalignment happens, the organization doesn't stop working. It actually typically accelerates, trying to work harder to make up for this misalignment. And this is the activity trap. This is where you've got busy work happening because busy feels productive, but the results don't actually ladder up to meet the strategic intent anymore. This is why misalignment creates chaos bleed. The organization depends on work converting into outcomes. When the execution is misaligned, work doesn't stop, it just leaks. So this effort, instead of rolling back up through this results arrow, it actually flows out at the end to waste and rework. Time turns into meetings. And the organization pays a tax for not effectively translating strategy into execution. And that ultimately is chaos bleed. So here are 3 signals you can look for to diagnose misalignment fast. The first is competing priorities. If you ask 3 leaders what matters most this quarter and you get 3 different answers, you have signal distortion. The second are translation gaps. If leaders can't explain how the work their team does directly contributes to the strategic intent of the organization, There's that broken translation layer. This is where strategy dies. And then the third is local optimization. This is when departments optimize their own success metrics, even when it harms the enterprise or doesn't contribute to the strategic intent. This happens a lot because of this signal distortion, so they're left to their own devices down here underneath the misalignment. And this is how you create internal competition instead of enterprise performance. Duplication of effort, all of those kinds of issues. Local optimization is how misalignment hides in plain sight. In the organizational pathology model, and if you haven't watched that video, you can watch it here in the link on the screen somewhere. Misalignment is one of the most common root patterns, and it's one of the easiest to misdiagnose because it looks like effort. This execution never stops. So let's take a look at this in terms of your own organization. Pick an enterprise priority that you currently have. Then ask 3 layers of the organization, maybe a director, a manager, a frontline leader. Ask them, what does this priority mean for your work this month? Whatever your priority is that you chose. And compare the answers. If the meanings shift by layer, the signal is distorted. And if that signal is distorted, you don't have an execution problem. You have an alignment problem. Drop a comment and tell me what misalignment signals you see in your organization. And if you want to diagnose this fast, the Org Friction Audit is linked below. It'll show you your chaos state and calculate your estimated chaos bleed. No pressure, just clarity. Misalignment is expensive because it feels like progress, but busy is not aligned. And execution without alignment is how organizations waste a year. I'll see you in the next video where we talk about misincentivization and how metrics can quietly drive the wrong behavior.